I'm Ethel, 57 years old, and until recently, I was the kind of mother who would do almost anything for her daughter. When my daughter Ashley told me her birthday dinner was canceled due to work, I believed her. Hours later, I accidentally discovered her celebrating with friends at an expensive restaurant using my credit card. What happened next taught us both an unforgettable lesson about respect and boundaries. If you're watching this, let me know where you're tuning in from, hit that subscribe button, and stay with me to learn how I finally stood up for myself after years of financial manipulation. After my husband Michael passed away from a heart attack 7 years ago, I found myself navigating life alone in our suburban Minneapolis home. The house was modest but comfortable, filled with memories of our 30 years together. Michael had been smart about finances, leaving me with enough savings to live comfortably through retirement if I managed it carefully. Our daughter Ashley and I had once been incredibly close. I still remember how she would climb into my lap as a little girl, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she told me about her day at school. Those days of innocent connection seemed like another lifetime now. Something changed when she went to college. The calls home became less frequent, and when they did come, they usually involved requests for money. At 32, Ashley had developed expensive tastes that far exceeded her income as a marketing coordinator. Her Instagram was filled with designer clothes, brunches at trendy restaurants, and weekend getaways to places I could never afford, even at the height of my accounting career. I often wondered how she managed it all on her salary, but deep down, I knew the answer. She had a rotation of people she tapped for funds, and I was at the top of that list. "Mom, my car broke down and I need $2,000 for repairs." She'd call panic in her voice. I'd transfer the money immediately, only to see posts of her at a spa weekend just days later. When I would gently question the discrepancy, she'd have an explanation ready. "Oh, my friend Tanya treated me to that after all the stress with my car." "Mom, I have a medical bill that's going to collections come," was another common emergency. Yet somehow, there was always money for a new designer purse the following week. "It was a gift from Justin," she'd explain, referring to her boyfriend of 3 years, who seemed to have as loose a relationship with financial reality as she did. These patterns continued for years, each request accompanied by promises to pay me back that never materialized. I kept a notebook in my desk drawer where I recorded every loan. The total had reached nearly $20,000, a sum that made my stomach knot every time I looked at it. My financial advisor, Barbara, had grown increasingly concerned during our quarterly meetings. "Ethel, at this rate you're going to deplete your retirement funds 10 years too early," she warned during our last session, glasses perched on the end of her nose as she showed me projections on her computer screen. "I understand wanting to help your daughter, but you need to set some boundaries." I nodded in agreement, knowing she was right, but unsure how to change a dynamic that had been established for so long. The thought of confronting Ashley made my hands tremble. What if she pulled away completely? Since Michael died, the fear of losing more loved ones had haunted me, making it harder to stand my ground. Ashley's 32nd birthday was approaching, and I could feel the familiar tension building. In previous years, she had expected increasingly lavish celebrations, all on my dime. For her 30th, I had spent nearly $1,000 on dinner for her and 5 friends at a steakhouse. I still winced thinking about that credit card bill. This year would need to be different. Barbara's warnings echoed in my mind along with my dwindling account balance. I had rehearsed what I would say when Ashley inevitably brought up birthday plans, practicing in front of my bathroom mirror, like I was preparing for a job interview, rather than a conversation with my own daughter. Little did I know that this birthday would indeed be different, but not in the way I had planned. It would become the turning point in our relationship, forcing both of us to confront truths we had been avoiding for years. The call came 3 weeks before Ashley's birthday. Her name flashed on my phone screen as I was watering the potted geraniums on my back porch. Taking a deep breath, I answered with forced cheerfulness. "Mom, I've been thinking about my birthday," she began without preamble. "There's this amazing new restaurant downtown called Delmonico's. Everyone's been talking about it, and I thought it would be perfect for my celebration dinner." "That sounds nice, sweetie," I said carefully. "What kind of place is it?" "It's like this upscale American cuisine with a modern twist. The chef trained in Paris." Her voice brimmed with excitement. "I already checked, and they have availability on my birthday at 7. I figured you could make a reservation for 6 of us." The way she said it, not as a question but as a foregone conclusion, made my chest tighten slightly. 6 people. That's quite a group. "Just me, you, Justin, and a few close friends," she said dismissively. "And I was thinking instead of trying to figure out what gift to get me this year, you could just cover the dinner as my present. That would be so much easier for everyone." There it was. The assumption that I would foot the bill for her and her friends presented as though she was doing me a favor by not requiring an additional gift. I gripped the phone tighter. "Let me look into this restaurant and see what their prices are like," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Then we can talk more about the plans." After we hung up, I immediately searched for Delmonico's online. My stomach dropped when I saw the menu prices. Appetizers started at $25. Main courses ranged from $45 to $70. Their wine list was even more alarming, with bottles starting at $80. A simple calculation told me that dinner for 6 people could easily exceed $1,200, especially knowing Ashley and her friends' ordering habits. That was nearly half of my monthly pension. The next day I called Ashley back with an alternative suggestion. "I looked at Delmonico's and it's a bit beyond my budget, sweetie. What about Riverside Grill instead? I've heard wonderful things about their food, and the price point is more reasonable." The silence on the other end of the line was palpable. "Riverside Grill!" Her voice dripped with disappointment. "Mom, that's where families with kids go for burgers. It's my 32nd birthday. I thought you'd want to make it special." The guilt trip was familiar territory. "Of course I want your birthday to be special, Ashley. I'm just suggesting a place where we can all enjoy ourselves without breaking the bank." "I can't believe you're being so stingy," she said, her tone shifting from disappointment to accusation. "Dad would have never quibbled about a nice birthday dinner." The invocation of Michael was a low blow that made my eyes sting. "Your father would have wanted me to be financially responsible," I said quietly. "He worked hard to make sure I would be secure after he was gone." More silence, then a heavy sigh. "Fine. If you absolutely can't afford Delmonico's, I guess we can go to Westlake instead. It's not what I wanted, but at least it's not a family burger joint." I quickly looked up Westlake Bistro. The prices were still high, but not as stratospheric as Delmonico's. It would stretch my budget, but I could manage it if I cut back elsewhere this month. "All right," I conceded. "Westlake it is, but Ashley, I need to set a spending limit of $500 for the evening. That means being mindful about ordering." "Whatever, Mom," she said, clearly displeased. "Oh, and I forgot to mention Justin will be joining us too." "I thought Justin was already included in the 6 people you mentioned." "No, so that makes 7 total. That's not a problem, right?" Before I could respond, she rushed on. "Great, it's settled then. Westlake at 7 on my birthday. I'll let everyone know." After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table feeling manipulated yet again. The reservation had grown, the restaurant was still expensive, and somehow I had been maneuvered into a position where I seemed like the unreasonable one for trying to set a budget. Still, I wanted to make her birthday special in ways that didn't just involve throwing money at it. I spent the next week creating a photo album chronicling her life from childhood through adulthood. I also had my mother's vintage opal bracelet cleaned and placed in a velvet box. The bracelet was both beautiful and valuable, but its worth was primarily sentimental. 3 generations of women in our family had worn it on special occasions. On the morning of Ashley's birthday, I woke early to call and wish her a happy day before she left for work. After several rings, the call went to voicemail. I left a cheerful message and sent a text as well. Hours passed without a response, which was unusual even for Ashley. Finally, at 2 in the afternoon, my phone chimed with a text message. "Mom, so sorry, but dinner tonight needs to be postponed. Major work emergency came up and I'll be at the office late. Rain check. Love you, XO." I stared at the message, feeling a mixture of disappointment and, if I'm being honest, relief. Disappointment, because I had been genuinely looking forward to giving Ashley her gifts and spending time together. Relief, because my bank account would get a reprieve, at least for now. I texted back, "No problem, honey. These things happen. Let me know when you want to reschedule. Happy birthday. Love you." With my evening suddenly free, I called my friend Sandra to see if she wanted to meet for coffee. Sandra and I had been friends since our children were in kindergarten together. Unlike many friends who drifted away after Michael died, Sandra had remained steadfast, checking in on me regularly and providing a shoulder to cry on during the darkest days of grief. "Ethel, I thought you had Ashley's big birthday dinner tonight," she said when she answered. "It was canceled. Work emergency apparently," I explained. "Well, how about we do more than coffee? Let's get dinner. There's a new casual place I've been wanting to try near downtown. The Garden Table. They're supposed to have amazing salads and homemade soups." The suggestion lifted my spirits. "That sounds perfect. Shall we meet there around 6? "It's a date," Sandra confirmed. "And it's right near that fancy place. What's it called? Delmonico's. We could peek in the windows and see how the other half lives," she joked. At the mention of Delmonico's, something nagged at the back of my mind. Hadn't Ashley specifically mentioned wanting to go there initially? But surely that was just a coincidence. Sandra couldn't have known about that conversation. "Sounds good," I said, pushing the thought away. "See you at 6. The early autumn evening was pleasant as Sandra and I walked toward the Garden Table. The restaurant was located in a trendy downtown area, surrounded by boutiques, coffee shops, and several upscale dining establishments. Among them, the sleek facade of Delmonico's stood out with its modern architecture and softly glowing sconces. "There it is," Sandra said, nodding toward the restaurant. "Apparently there's a 3-month waiting list for reservations, unless you know someone." As we walked past Delmonico's large front windows, I glanced inside, admiring the elegant interior with its crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. That's when I saw her. At first, my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. There, at a large round table near the center of the restaurant, sat my daughter, Ashley. Her blonde hair was styled in loose waves, and she wore a new black dress I didn't recognize. She was laughing, a glass of champagne raised in her hand. Around her sat Justin, in a blazer I had helped her pick out for him last Christmas, and 4 other friends, all equally well dressed for the occasion. I stopped walking, my feet suddenly rooted to the sidewalk. "Ethel!" "What's wrong?" Sandra asked, following my gaze. "Oh my God," she whispered as she realized what I was seeing. "It can't be," I murmured, moving closer to the window. "She told me she had a work emergency, that dinner was canceled." But there was no mistaking it. This was clearly a birthday celebration. In the center of the table sat a small cake with a single candle. As I watched, frozen in disbelief, a waiter approached with 2 bottles of champagne, presenting them with a flourish before pouring refills for everyone. "That lying little—" Sandra began, then caught herself. "I'm sorry, Ethel. This is absolutely outrageous." My initial shock was rapidly transforming into a complex tangle of emotions: hurt, betrayal, anger, and profound disappointment. The casual text message canceling our dinner replayed in my mind the fabricated work emergency, now exposed as a blatant lie. "Let's go in," Sandra suggested, her voice hard with indignation. "You should confront her right now." I was about to agree when I saw something that made my blood run cold. The waiter returned to the table this time, handing something to Ashley. It was a credit card which she tucked into her purse. Even from a distance, I recognized the distinctive blue design of my Capital One card. "That's my credit card," I said, my voice barely audible. "What?" Sandra looked from me to Ashley and back again. "My credit card. She's using my credit card to pay for all this." The realization hit me like a physical blow. Last weekend, Ashley had stopped by unexpectedly, saying she was in the neighborhood and wanted to say hello. While I was making tea, she had asked to borrow my phone charger. Her purse had been on the kitchen counter next to my wallet. The next day, I had noticed my Capital One card missing while at the grocery store. When I called Ashley to ask if she had seen it, she had sounded concerned and suggested I might have dropped it or misplaced it. "You've been a bit forgetful lately, Mom," she had said with a note of patronizing worry. "Remember when you couldn't find your reading glasses and they were on top of your head?" I had believed her calling the credit card company to report the card lost and request a replacement. They had told me it would arrive within 7 to 10 business days. In the meantime, I had been using my debit card. Now the truth was clear. Ashley hadn't just lied about the dinner being canceled. She had deliberately stolen my credit card to fund an extravagant meal at the very restaurant I had told her was beyond my budget. My hands began to shake, and I felt lightheaded. Sandra guided me to a nearby bench. "Deep breaths, Ethel," she instructed, her arm around my shoulders. "Just take deep breaths." "I can't believe she would do this," I said, my voice trembling. "She stole from me, Sandra. My own daughter." Sandra's expression was a mixture of sympathy and outrage. "I'm so sorry, Ethel. This is beyond unacceptable." As the initial shock began to subside, I watched through the window as Ashley and her friends ordered more food, gesturing animatedly to the waiter. I could see them selecting expensive items from the menu, laughing without a care in the world. My mind calculated the growing bill easily exceeding $1,000 by now. My chest felt tight, my heart racing with a combination of hurt and anger. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, honesty, and the fundamental trust between a parent and child. "What are you going to do?" Sandra asked gently. For a moment, I considered storming into the restaurant and confronting Ashley in front of everyone. The thought of the shocked expressions on her friends' faces held a certain appeal. But something stopped me. Perhaps it was dignity, or perhaps it was the knowledge that a public confrontation would only escalate the situation. Instead, a different idea took shape in my mind, one that would deliver a lesson without the drama of a restaurant scene. My hands were steady now as I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The anger had crystallized into resolute determination. "I'm going to handle this my way," I told Sandra, my voice calmer than I felt inside. I navigated to the card controls section of the app and found the option to temporarily freeze my Capital One card, the same card Ashley was currently using to finance her extravagant birthday celebration. "What are you doing?" Sandra asked, leaning over to see my screen. "Teaching a long overdue lesson," I replied, pressing the freeze card button. A confirmation message appeared informing me that the card would be frozen for transactions within approximately 15 minutes. I looked up at Sandra, a small, grim smile forming on my lips. "Let's get a table at the garden table, one with a view of Delmonico's entrance if possible." Sandra's eyes widened as she understood my plan. "Ethel Jenkins, I did not know you had this side to you," she said with newfound respect. "I absolutely approve." We walked the short distance to the garden table and requested a table by the front window. From our vantage point, we could clearly see the entrance to Delmonico's across the street. I ordered a cup of chamomile tea, my appetite having disappeared entirely, while Sandra opted for a bowl of butternut squash soup. As we waited, I confided in Sandra about the extent of Ashley's financial manipulation over the years. The emergencies that never seemed to be emergencies the loans that were never repaid, the constant drain on my retirement savings. Michael always said I was too soft with her, I admitted, stirring my tea absently. He tried to instill financial responsibility, but after he died, I think I tried to fill the void by giving her whatever she wanted. You were grieving, Sandra said kindly. We don't always make the best decisions when we're in pain. Barbara, my financial advisor, warned me last month that I'm spending down my savings too quickly. If this continues, I'll have nothing left for my later years. The reality of my financial situation had been something I'd been avoiding thinking about too deeply. Then perhaps this is a blessing in disguise, Sandra suggested. A wake-up call for both of you. Through the window of Delmonico's, I could see Ashley and her friends now enjoying what appeared to be their main courses. A waiter brought another round of drinks. I estimated they had been dining for nearly 2 hours now, building up what must be an enormous bill. Based on the menu prices I had researched and the multiple bottles of champagne I'd seen, they were easily looking at over $1,500. I checked my watch. The card should be frozen by now. Do you think I'm being too harsh? I asked Sandra suddenly, a flicker of doubt crossing my mind. She shook her head firmly. Absolutely not. She stole your credit card, Ethel. That's not just inconsiderate, it's illegal. And to lie to you about the dinner being canceled so she could use your money to treat her friends to an extravagant meal, you explicitly said you couldn't afford. No, you're not being too harsh. If anything, you're being remarkably restrained. Her words strengthened my resolve. This wasn't about punishment. It was about consequences. Ashley was 32 years old, well past the age where she should understand that actions have repercussions. At that moment, I saw a waiter approaching Ashley's table with a leather folder that undoubtedly contained the bill. I sat up straighter, my heart beating faster as I watched the scene unfold across the street. The waiter placed the folder on the table with a small bow. Ashley picked it up immediately, her expression still animated from the conversation. She opened it, glanced at the total, and then reached into her purse for my credit card. With confident gestures that suggested she'd done this many times before she slipped the card into the folder and handed it back to the waiter without showing the bill to anyone else at the table. The entire interaction took less than a minute, but to me it revealed volumes about how accustomed she had become to spending my money. The waiter disappeared with the folder. Minutes later, he returned with a concerned expression. He leaned down to speak quietly to Ashley, who looked confused. She said something back, and he showed her what must have been the declined transaction slip. Ashley's face transformed from confusion to alarm. She dug in her purse, presumably checking that she had given him the right card, then handed it back to him with an insistent gesture. The waiter nodded and left again. "Round 2, Sandra murmured, completely invested in the unfolding drama. When the waiter returned again, his expression was apologetic but firm. He showed Ashley something on a handheld terminal. Her face had lost its celebratory glow, replaced by growing panic. She pulled out her phone and began frantically typing. Seconds later, my own phone buzzed with a text message. "Mom, my card is being declined at the restaurant. Can you check if there's some problem with your account? It's really embarrassing." Note that she said my card, not your card, that I took without permission. I showed the message to Sandra, who raised her eyebrows in disbelief. I didn't respond. Another text followed quickly. "Mom, please check ASAP. The bill is here and nothing is going through." Then another. "This is humiliating. Please call me as soon as you get this." And finally, "Mom, I need you to call the bank right now. Everyone is staring." My phone began to ring. Ashley's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. Across the street, the scene at the table had transformed. Gone was the carefree celebration, replaced by visible tension. Ashley was speaking rapidly to her friends, her gestures becoming increasingly agitated. Justin appeared to be arguing with her while the others looked uncomfortable, checking their phones and avoiding eye contact. The waiter hovered nearby, clearly waiting for a resolution to the payment problem. After a few minutes, a man in a suit, likely the manager, approached the table. "I think reality is setting in," Sandra observed. Indeed, as Ashley's friends were now opening their wallets and purses, reluctantly pooling cash and cards. Justin appeared to be objecting strenuously to contributing, his face flushed with anger. Ashley kept looking at her phone, presumably checking for a response from me. The manager collected various forms of payment from around the table, with Ashley appearing to contribute little or nothing herself. The celebratory mood had evaporated entirely, replaced by what appeared to be recrimination and embarrassment. "Mission accomplished?" Sandra asked as we watched the group finally prepare to leave, their body language stiff and awkward. "Just the beginning," I replied, finishing my now cold tea. "The real conversation happens next." The drive home from downtown was silent, my mind racing with thoughts of the confrontation to come. Sandra had offered to accompany me, her protective instincts in full force, but this was a conversation I needed to have with my daughter alone. "Call me afterward," she had insisted as she hugged me goodbye outside the garden table. "No matter how late. And remember, you're doing the right thing." I had barely been home 20 minutes when I heard the aggressive sound of tires on gravel in my driveway. Headlights flashed through my living room window as Ashley parked at an awkward angle. The car door slammed with enough force to make me wince. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself for what was coming. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say, but I knew that emotions would likely derail my carefully planned speech. The front door burst open without a knock. Ashley stormed in, her face flushed with anger, eyes blazing. "What the hell, Mom?" she shouted, throwing her purse on the couch. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? The card was declined in front of everyone." I remained seated in my armchair, maintaining a calm exterior, despite my racing heart. "Hello, Ashley, happy birthday." "Happy birthday," she sputtered, thrown off balance by my composed response. "Are you serious right now? I just had the most embarrassing experience of my life because something went wrong with your card." I fixed her with a steady gaze. "Nothing went wrong with my card. I froze it." Her expression shifted from anger to confusion. "You... what? Why would you do that?" "Because I saw you, Ashley. I saw you at Delmonico's with Justin and your friends, celebrating the birthday dinner you told me was canceled due to a work emergency." She froze, her mouth opening and closing without words, then recovering quickly. "I don't know what you're talking about. I was at work late and then we just decided to grab a quick bite." "Stop lying," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I was downtown with Sandra. We walked right past Delmonico's windows. I saw you with the champagne, the cake, all of it. And I saw you paying with my credit card. The same credit card that mysteriously disappeared from my wallet after your visit last weekend." Color drained from Ashley's face, only to be replaced by a deeper flush. "I was going to tell you," she began, her tone shifting to defensive. "It was supposed to be a surprise. I was going to pay you back." "Like you've paid back the other $20,000 you've borrowed over the years?" I asked, gesturing to the notebook I'd placed on the coffee table between us. "I've kept track, Ashley. Every loan, every emergency, every promise to repay. Not a single dollar has ever been returned." She glanced at the notebook but didn't touch it. "That's not fair. I've had expenses, student loans." "The truth, Ashley. For once, just tell me the truth." She stared at me for a long moment, then collapsed onto the couch, the fight seeming to drain out of her. "Fine. I took your card. I wanted to go to Delmonico's for my birthday, and I knew you wouldn't pay for it. So you lied about a work emergency, stole my credit card, and used it to treat your friends to a meal at a restaurant you knew I couldn't afford." "You can afford it," she snapped, anger flaring again. You're just stingy. Dad left you well off, and all you do is pinch pennies and worry about your precious retirement." The casual cruelty of her words stung. "Your father worked hard his entire life to make sure I would be secure after he was gone. He didn't leave me well off so I could fund an endless series of extravagant dinners and designer clothes for you and your friends. So what, you decided to humiliate me in front of everyone? Do you have any idea what that was like?" Justin is furious. He had to put $300 on his already maxed out credit card. Tanya and Mark barely had enough cash between them. We all looked like idiots. "And whose fault is that?" I asked quietly. "You put yourselves in that position by stealing and lying." "It's just money," she exclaimed, throwing her hands up. "Why do you always have to make everything such a big deal? Normal parents help their kids out." "Help, yes. Enable theft and deception, no." As if on cue, Ashley's phone rang. She glanced at it, grimaced, and answered. "Hey. Yeah, I know. No, it's not sorted yet. I'm at my mom's now." She covered the phone and whispered to me, "It's Justin. He wants to know if you're going to fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I said, clearly loud enough for Justin to hear. "The card was used fraudulently. The freeze stays." Ashley's eyes widened in disbelief. She uncovered the phone. "I'll call you back," she told Justin before hanging up. "You can't be serious," she said to me. "Delmonico's is going to charge a fee for the declined transaction. Plus, Justin and everyone had to empty their accounts to cover the bill. You need to pay them back." "No, Ashley, you need to pay them back. These are the consequences of your actions." "You're being ridiculous," she shouted, standing up again. "This is about a stupid dinner. Why are you making it into this huge thing?" "Because it's not just about the dinner," I said, my voice cracking slightly as the emotional weight of the moment pressed on me. "It's about respect. It's about honesty. It's about the fact that my own daughter thinks it's acceptable to steal from me and then lie to my face." "I didn't steal," she said automatically. "I was going to tell you. After the fact. After spending over $1,000 of my money without permission. That's stealing, Ashley." Her phone buzzed repeatedly with text messages. She glanced down at them, her expression growing more distressed. "Great, now everyone's texting me. Thanks a lot, Mom. You've completely ruined my birthday and probably several of my friendships." "I didn't ruin anything," I said firmly. "Your choices did that." She began typing furiously on her phone. "I'm telling them you're going to fix this, that this was all a misunderstanding and you'll transfer everyone the money they had to spend." "Don't do that," I warned, "because it's not true. I will not be covering that bill." She looked up, challenge in her eyes. "If you don't, I swear, I'll never speak to you again." The threat hung in the air between us. A part of me, the part that had always given in to her demands out of fear of losing her, wanted to relent. But a stronger part, perhaps channeling Michael's practicality or simply my own long-suppressed self-respect, held firm. "That would break my heart, Ashley. But if that's your choice, I have to accept it. I won't be emotionally blackmailed anymore." Something in my tone must have conveyed my seriousness, because her expression changed, the bravado faltering. "You don't mean that," she said, uncertainty creeping into her voice. "I do," I said quietly. "I love you more than anything in this world, but I cannot continue to support behavior that is destructive to both of us. The financial drain is depleting my security, and the dynamic is keeping you from developing true independence." She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. The silence stretched between us, tense and heavy, with unspoken emotions. Finally, she snatched up her purse. "I need to go. My friends are waiting to hear back about the money." "Ashley," I called as she headed for the door, "think about what I've said. Please." She paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. "You've made your position very clear," she said coldly, before walking out. The door closed behind her with a decisive click. I remained in my armchair listening to her car start and the sound of tires on gravel fade into the distance. Only then did I allow the tears to come silent streams running down my cheeks as I mourned what felt like the death of the relationship we had. It had been an unhealthy one, I knew that now, but it was still a loss. I reached for my phone and called Sandra. "It's done," I told her when she answered. She left. She threatened never to speak to me again if I didn't pay for the dinner. "Oh, Ethel," Sandra sighed. "I'm coming over. Don't argue. I'll bring wine." True to her word, Sandra arrived 30 minutes later with a bottle of Merlot and a fierce hug. That night, as we talked into the early hours, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the lightness that comes with finally setting down a heavy burden you've carried for too long. In the following days, my phone lit up with texts and calls from unfamiliar numbers, Ashley's friends expressing their disappointment in my lack of family support. Justin left a particularly nasty voicemail about flaky parents who don't stand by their kids. I deleted them all without response. Ashley herself maintained radio silence for 2 weeks. Each day without contact was painful, but also strangely liberating. I was learning that setting boundaries, while difficult, was an act of self-care I had neglected for far too long. On the 15th day after our confrontation, I sent Ashley a simple text. "I love you. When you're ready to talk about building a healthier relationship based on mutual respect, I'll be here." She didn't respond, but I hadn't expected her to. Seeds take time to germinate, especially when planted in difficult soil. The support group met in a church basement every Wednesday evening. Finding parents of financially dependent adult children had been Sandra's idea. She had seen a flyer at her community center and immediately thought of me. "You're not alone in this, Ethel," she had insisted. "It might help to talk to others who understand." I had been skeptical but agreed to try one meeting. That was 2 months ago. Now I rarely missed a week. Tonight, as I shared the story of the frozen credit card incident with the group, I was met with understanding nods and murmurs of support. "You did the right thing," said Gloria, a retired teacher whose 40-year-old son still lived in her basement. "Setting boundaries is an act of love even when it doesn't feel like it." "Has she contacted you at all?" asked Tom, whose situation with his daughters sounded remarkably similar to mine. "Not directly," I admitted, "but I've heard through mutual friends that she's been having financial troubles. Apparently she and Justin broke up after the restaurant incident. He was upset about having to contribute to the bill." "Good riddance," muttered Diane, always the most outspoken member of the group. "He sounds like he was enabling her just as much as anyone." After the meeting, I met with Barbara, my financial advisor, who had helped me develop a comprehensive plan to protect my assets. We had changed passwords on all my accounts, ordered new cards, and I'd even installed a small safe for important documents and emergency cash. These practical steps, while seemingly minor, had given me a sense of control I hadn't realized I was missing. I had also reconnected with old friends and developed new interests. The community garden 3 blocks from my house had become a sanctuary of sorts. There was something deeply satisfying about planting seeds, nurturing them, and watching them grow into something beautiful and nourishing. I had also joined a book club at the local library, finding joy in discussions about literature, rather than worrying about Ashley's latest financial crisis. It was during one particularly peaceful evening, as I was pruning my tomato plants in the community garden, that my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Ethel Jenkins?" a young woman's voice asked when I answered. "Yes, it is. Who's calling?" "My name is Laura. I'm Ashley's roommate. We haven't met, but she talks about you." My heart quickened. "Is Ashley all right?" There was a pause. "Physically, yes, but she's in a bad situation. I wouldn't normally call a friend's parent, but I'm worried about her, and she mentioned you might be able to help." "What kind of situation?" I asked, already guessing the answer. Financial, Laura confirmed. She's 3 months behind on her share of the rent. The landlord is threatening eviction. And from what I can see, her credit cards are all maxed out. She's been eating ramen for weeks. The old me would have immediately offered to pay Ashley's rent and probably cover her credit card debt too, but I had learned some hard lessons over the past few months. Thank you for letting me know, Laura. I appreciate your concern for my daughter. Can I ask you a favor? Would you tell Ashley that I'd like to meet with her, not at my house or hers? Perhaps at the coffee corner on Elm Street. I can do that, Laura said, sounding relieved. She's been talking about calling you, but I think she's embarrassed after whatever happened between you two. Just tell her I'd like to talk. No pressure, no judgment. After hanging up, I sat on the garden bench, emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to rush to Ashley's rescue, as I always had. Another part remained firm in the knowledge that doing so would only perpetuate the unhealthy pattern we had established. The next day I received a text from Ashley. Coffee corner tomorrow at 10, Hauhum. I responded with a simple, I'll be there, and tried not to overthink what the meeting might bring. The coffee corner was busy when I arrived the next morning, filled with the usual mix of students with laptops and retirees reading newspapers. I found a small table in a quiet corner and ordered a chamomile tea, my go-to beverage when nervous. Ashley arrived 10 minutes late, looking thinner than I remembered. Her designer clothes had been replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. The confident swagger was gone from her walk. Hi, Mom, she said quietly, sliding into the seat across from me. Hello, Ashley. Thank you for meeting me. An awkward silence fell between us, 3 months of separation, creating a chasm wider than the small table. Your roommate called me, I said, finally deciding directness was the best approach. Ashley's eyes widened. Laura called you. I never told her to do that. She's worried about you. She said you're behind on rent and having financial difficulties. Ashley looked down at her hands. I can't believe she did that. It's humiliating. It's not humiliating to go through hard times, I said gently. It's part of life. Easy for you to say. She muttered, a flash of the old defensiveness emerging. You've always had everything under control. I couldn't help but laugh, a short surprised sound. Oh, Ashley, if you only knew. I've been terrified about money since your father died. I've just become good at hiding it. She looked up, confusion crossing her features. But you always paid for everything I needed. The emergency car repairs, the medical bills. Yes, I did. Often at the expense of my own security. Barbara, my financial advisor, has been warning me for years that I was depleting my retirement funds too quickly. That night at Delmonico's was a breaking point. Her cheeks flushed at the mention of the restaurant. I was going to pay you back for that, she said automatically, then sighed. No, I wasn't. I'm sorry, Mom. I was completely out of line. The simple apology, so long in coming, felt like a gift. Thank you for saying that. She fidgeted with a sugar packet. So Laura told you everything about the rent and the credit cards. She mentioned you were having difficulties. Yes. Ashley took a deep breath, seeming to brace herself. I guess you're here to bail me out again. No, I said firmly. I'm not. Her eyes snapped up to meet mine, surprise evident. Then why did you want to meet? To offer a different kind of help. I won't give you money to pay your debts, Ashley, but I will help you create a budget and a plan to pay them yourself. I'll help you learn to manage your finances responsibly if you're willing to try. She stared at me as if I'd suggested she fly to the moon. A budget, Mom. I'm about to be evicted. I need rent money, not financial advice. The rent money would solve your immediate problem, yes, but without addressing the underlying issues, you'll be in the same situation next month and the month after that. So, you're just going to let me be homeless? Her voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. I kept my voice calm and even. You have options that don't involve homelessness or me giving you money. You could get a second job. You could look for a more affordable living situation. You could sell some of your designer items. She looked stricken. Sell my things. Get a second job. Do you know how hard I work already? I know exactly how hard you work, Ashley. I also know that your spending has consistently exceeded your income for years. Something has to change, and giving you money again won't create that change. She sat back in her chair, arms crossed defensively. So that's it. A lecture about budgeting while I lose my apartment. No, that's not it, I said, reaching into my purse. I pulled out a small notebook and a pen. This is a serious offer of help, not a lecture. We can sit here right now and go through your income and expenses. We can create a realistic plan, and I'll check in with you weekly to help you stay on track. Like I'm a child who needs monitoring, she scoffed. Like you're an adult who's asked for help with a specific problem, I corrected gently. I'm offering the kind of help that will make a real difference in the long run, not a temporary Band-Aid. She was silent for a long moment, conflict evident in her expression. Finally, she sighed deeply. Fine. I guess I don't have many options right now. For the next 2 hours, we worked through her financial situation. It was worse than I had imagined. Multiple maxed-out credit cards, payday loans with exorbitant interest rates, 3 months of back rent, and a closet full of designer clothes she couldn't afford. When we totaled her debt, it came to just over $22,000. I don't see how I can ever pay this off, she said, looking defeated as she stared at the final number. One step at a time, I assured her. First, we prioritize. Rent comes first to avoid eviction, then minimum payments on the credit cards to stop the fees from accumulating. Then we tackle the highest interest debt first. I helped her create a realistic budget based on her actual income, not the lifestyle she wished she could afford. We identified areas where she could cut expenses, including the membership to an exclusive gym she rarely used, and subscription services she had forgotten she was paying for. And yes, I said gently, you should consider selling some of your designer items. That Gucci bag you bought last year could cover a month of rent. She winced but nodded. It seems so drastic. It's a fresh start, I countered. A chance to rebuild on a more solid foundation. As we finished our financial planning session, I made a proposal. Let's meet weekly to review your progress. Every Sunday morning, right here. No judgment, just support and accountability. To my surprise, she agreed without argument. Okay, Sundays at 10. As we gathered our things to leave, Ashley looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. A vulnerability that reminded me of the little girl with pigtails who used to climb into my lap. Thanks, Mom, for not giving up on me even when I was awful to you. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'll never give up on you, Ashley. I'm just learning better ways to show my love. The weekly financial coaching sessions became a new ritual for us. The first few weeks were challenging. Ashley resisted selling her designer items, then reluctantly listed a few on consignment. She complained about taking extra shifts at work, then surprised me by finding a weekend job at a local boutique that offered an employee discount on the clothes she loved. There were setbacks. A night out with friends that blew her entertainment budget for the month. An impulse purchase she tried to hide, then sheepishly admitted to the following week. But slowly, gradually, I began to see changes. The breakthrough came about 2 months into our weekly meetings. Ashley arrived at the coffee corner with an unusual spring in her step. I paid off the first credit card, she announced, sliding into her seat. The one with the highest interest rate like you suggested. It's completely zero. The pride in her voice was worth more than any designer bag could ever be. That's wonderful, Ashley. How does it feel? Weird, actually, she admitted. Good weird. Like I accomplished something real, not just buying something, but actually fixing something. That same day, she told me about her therapy sessions, something she had started on her own initiative. The therapist says I have issues with entitlement, she said with a self-deprecating smile. Apparently, that's not a shock to anyone but me. 6 months after the Delmonico's incident, Ashley invited me to dinner. My treat, she insisted. I've been saving specifically for this. She chose a modest neighborhood restaurant, nothing fancy, but with good food and a warm atmosphere. When the check came, she paid with her own debit card, carefully calculating a 20% tip. It was such a simple act, but watching my 32-year-old daughter pay for her own meal within her own budget filled me with a pride I hadn't felt in years. I've been thinking about something, she said as we walked to our cars afterward. You never gave me my birthday present from that night. I had almost forgotten about the photo album and the opal bracelet still sitting in gift bags in my closet. You're right. Would you like them now? Actually, she said, surprising me, I'd rather earn them. The way things worked out, I didn't deserve a gift then. But maybe for Christmas if I've stuck to my budget and paid off another card by then. I tried to hide the tears that sprang to my eyes at this simple but profound evidence of her growth. That sounds perfect. Today marks 1 year since the night I froze my credit card and left my daughter panicking at an expensive restaurant. As I look back on that painful evening, I realize it was the best gift I could have given her, though neither of us knew it at the time. Ashley now lives in a smaller, more affordable apartment with a new roommate. She's paid off 3 of her 5 credit cards and has a realistic plan for the remaining 2. She still loves fashion but shops at consignment stores and waits for sales. Most importantly, she hasn't asked me for money once in the past year. Our relationship has transformed. Where once we had an unhealthy dynamic of enabler and enabled, we now have something approaching an adult friendship. We meet for coffee or lunch regularly, and she recently helped me plant a new section of the community garden, getting dirt under her manicured nails without complaint. Last month for my birthday, she cooked dinner at her apartment. It was a simple meal of pasta and salad served on mismatched plates at her small kitchen table. After dinner, she presented me with a gift, a small wooden box she had made in a community college woodworking class she's taking. Open it, she urged, a nervous smile playing on her lips. Inside, I found a stack of small cards, each bearing a handwritten note. Good for 1 home-cooked meal. Good for 1 garden planting session. Good for organizing family photo albums together. I know it's not much, she said, watching my face anxiously, but I wanted to give you something that couldn't be bought. That box of promise cards sits on my bedside table now, a tangible symbol of the new foundation we've built. It's more valuable than any expensive gift she could have purchased with a stolen credit card. The journey hasn't been easy. There have been difficult conversations, tears and moments of doubt on both sides. Setting boundaries with someone you love is perhaps one of life's most challenging tasks. It requires the courage to endure short-term pain for long-term health, to risk temporary rejection for the possibility of authentic connection. What I've learned through this experience is that enabling someone you love isn't actually love at all. True love sometimes means letting someone face the consequences of their actions, even when those consequences are painful to witness. I've also learned that it's never too late to change long-standing patterns. At 57, I finally found the courage to stand up for myself financially and emotionally. At 33, Ashley is finally developing the financial responsibility and self-awareness that will serve her throughout her life. If you're watching this and struggling with similar issues with your adult children, know that you're not alone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for both your well-being and ultimately for theirs. The path forward isn't about cutting off support entirely, but about finding healthier ways to be supportive that don't enable destructive patterns. I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to set difficult financial boundaries with loved ones? How did you handle it? And what was the outcome? Share your stories. Hit the like button if this resonated with you and subscribe for more real-life lessons from someone who's been there. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing we can do is say no.